Morning. It's Tuesday, April 8th. Yes. It's a little bit later right now than I would like it to be. I've been helping Dad get trucks loaded and then also dealing with some paperwork for my other business, trying to get some coronavirus support for that, because we normally do probably 40% of our annual sales in April and May, and it looks like we're going to be at zero this year. I got the planter pulled out here now and sort of wanted to get the PTO coupler pulled off the pump. I found a puller that I could make work, although getting the jaws underneath the back of the coupler was kind of tricky. It was on there pretty good. Once I got enough tension on it and whacked it with a hammer, it actually like popped off and probably shot 6 or 8 inches, and sort of everything fell in a pile at my feet here. But it's off, and going to check and make sure that the coupler that I got works. I'm 99% sure that it's going to be fine, but wanted to figure out if it wasn't. Wanted to find that out sooner than later, and then have a few other things to work on. I need to get some parts ordered for a couple things, so I'm kind of going to be running around figuring out what all I need, and also want to try to use the fuel cultivator in the next couple days, so I need to work on it a little bit. The one of the main tires, or the tire on one of the main walking tandems, is flat and off of the bead probably, so that's going to be a little bit of a project to get air in the tire so that we can pull it out of the shed. Hopefully it doesn't need too much service-wise other than just greasing, but it does have a lot of grease zerks with all the pivot points and stuff, so that might be an hour or two in itself also. But it's looking more and more like it's going to be cold and wet coming this weekend and next week, which Saturday is the first day that I can plant for crop insurance purposes to have replant coverage. And it doesn't look like that's probably going to be possible, or if it is possible, maybe not smart with the current forecast. We'll see what happens. It's Thursday, April 9th, and it looks like I've got some dust on my lens. We're going to try to get some corn here this morning. We're going to pull corn out of the big bin on the right and put it in the small bin on the left. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the video, but I just crawled up on top of that little bin and got the lid opened up. The wind's supposed to blow super hard again this afternoon. I think actually a wind advisory maybe for some part of the day. And want to try to get kind of the center section of that big bin pulled out, because one of the other disadvantages to grain spreaders, besides that they don't really work that well, is that they also leave all the fines in the middle of the bin, and then you don't get nearly as good airflow through the center as the outsides, which makes it hard to dry that grain, and also leads to some spoilage potentially, which it looks like we have a little bit in the top. I'm hoping that it's just in the dead center, like where snow or rain like got in that lid and dripped down or something. It doesn't seem like a very big area, but I'm going to crawl up there and kind of dig around with a grain scoop a little bit and kind of make sure that we don't have a bigger problem than we think, because if there's chunks and they go down to the bottom of the bin, they can plug up the sump, so that you don't have grain flowing out freely anymore, and that becomes a larger problem. So what I'm going to do is drag this chunk of conduit up the top of the bin, and basically we'll just jam it down into the grain, and you can kind of feel if there's restrictions. Alright, we're up in the bin now, and I've got about a 5-gallon bucket of nasty stuff that I dug out last night when I was kind of digging this hole. So we're right in the center of the bin underneath the main filling hole, or whatever you want to call it. It seems that, you know what, there's a bunch of condensation on that lid, and it looks like it just dripped down. I wonder if that's part of the problem. I was thinking that the problem maybe was that that lid didn't fit very tight because of how the grain spreader is leveled, and would allow snow or rain to blow up underneath. I know that we've checked this bin pretty frequently, really, and there was definitely some snow in the middle, and I took out some chunks of kind of ice as it was starting to melt, probably in January sometime. I know that there was another snow event after that, and kind of wonder if that could have been part of it. Although I probably checked this bin maybe 2 weeks ago, and I think Dad's been up here once since then, and we never saw anything going out of condition until last night. So I kind of think that, like, probably there's some water coming down from the top somehow, or moisture, and I'm kind of wondering if some of that is condensation, because there's a whole bunch of water droplets hanging on the bottom side of that lid. I don't know if it'll show up in the video or not, but it got pretty cold last night. I'm not sure what the low was exactly, but I think it was mid-30s or so when I came out of the house here. It was a little before 8 o'clock at that point. It's been warmer than that, so the grain is warmer than that, and now we have warm, moist air coming up and hitting the bottom side of the roof on the bin, which is now cold because it's 36 degrees outside, so we're getting a bunch of condensation. And normally what you want to happen is for that condensation to all run down the edge and then drip outside, and that's what most of it was doing. But it looks like there's a whole bunch on that lid that I kind of wonder if is running anywhere, or if it's just dripping down into the center section. So I'm going to shovel a little bit more in this area and take that chunk of conduit and kind of probe down and see how things feel, and then kind of figure out exactly what our game plan is. But kind of the general idea is that we're going to pull out of the center trap here, and normally what'll happen, you'll kind of pull that center column down, and then basically when you unload a bin, the grain on the top ends up coming out first. I mean, once you get like that center column gone. So hopefully we'll be able to take out a load or so and be able to kind of get a lot of the fines out of here, and then also kind of know what we've got, I guess, if we're going to have any significant spoilage issues, but hopefully be able to get some of the corn that's not going to dry very well out of here and put into the drying bin where we have stirrators and maybe more fan capacity per bushel, and be able to kind of get that dried out and where it'll make grade and we don't get docked a whole bunch taking it to the elevator is the hope. As long as we don't have too much spoiled stuff, but I kind of think it's pretty localized in the center area, but we'll see. Well, it looks like hopefully that problem was just in the very center of the bin. So I got about a 5-gallon bucket full of garbage corn that we pulled out, and we're going to set stuff up and start pulling some corn out of the bin from the bottom and see what happens. Hopefully the corn keeps coming out and we don't end up plugging the sump. But in order to do that, I need to switch some stuff around, so I'm going to get this tractor out of the way. I've got the drill hooked up. I didn't take much video last night, but got stuff switched around, so I'm going to pull the forklift off and move some augers around. It's after lunch now, and got some corn moved out of the big bin into the little bin. It's a little windy. Ended up pulling 2 semi-loads, probably a little short semi-load, maybe 1,800 bushels out of the 42 and put into the small bin. Seemed like the grain quality looked okay, so I think the stuff that was spoiling probably was a pretty local spot. So hopefully the 5-gallon bucket full of garbage that I pulled out of there was most of it, and if there was a little bit more, it won't be enough to cause anything as far as dock and stuff. But the next thing on the agenda is getting the field cultivator ready to go. We haven't used it very often the last few years since we've been doing mostly no-till, so need to go through and get the tires aired up and grease all of the hinge and pivot points, and hopefully gonna work down some of those new terraces here later today, and also seed some waterway spots where we had tile ditches that went through, and maybe spot in a little bit on another waterway, but we'll see how far we get on everything. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon now, and got the field cultivator all ready to go. I went ahead and worked down some terraces and tile lines on one farm, and now we're on to another one. It seems to be pulling better if I don't put down the outer wing, so I'm going to try it maybe with a narrower width on this field and see how it goes, or maybe try it both ways. But we'll get a little action footage here just as we start out. actually there on the entry before I head for home on the way out of the field. What we're mainly working down though is these terraces. So just trying to get everything nice and smooth and kind of transitioned into the no-till parts of the field. So that we don't have any huge bumps later this season or in perpetuity. 4 more terraces over here that I'm going to work down, and a couple tile lines, and then some stuff down at the bottom there along a creek that there was some dirt scooped out of that ditch a few years ago that we had spread out, so I'm going to work that down. And then I've got a tile line down this waterway, and probably we'll come back along the end rows there. But I'm going to go see if I can pick up some of those flags that are laying in the dirt, so I'll end the video there. Getting out and grabbing those flags out of the dirt. Things are still pretty chunky, so we'll kind of see how this looks next week. It's supposed to be pretty cold. The overnight lows especially are down in the 20s, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday anyway. So my hope is that some of the chunks maybe will soften up when it freezes, especially if there's some rain between now and then. But there's also a chance that we may end up hitting this again to kind of break up some of the quads a little more before we plant. We'll just have to kind of see how it looks. It's about a little after 7 o'clock now, and got the auger put away and got the hitch actually bolted onto the tractor for this, and I'm going to go ahead and load it. I don't think I'm probably going to drill anything tonight, but at least we'll have it ready to go for tomorrow. So mostly what I'm going to drill is partly oats and some versagrass, which is kind of a mix of perennial grasses. However, I have some odds and ends left from doing this in the past, and also some cover crop stuff possibly. I'm not exactly sure what we've got in these. But the plan is to just kind of dump everything in and probably run a pretty high rate and hit stuff once. Usually when I do waterways, I like to overlap several times, but since it's spring and there's pretty good potential we're going to have some rains of significant size at some point, I kind of want to minimize the dirt that I disturb since I have grass growing there now. So I'm probably going to kind of make passes through the thin spots going across, and some of the spots that I seeded in December that I didn't use any perennial grass at that time. And then whatever is left in the drill, probably I'll kind of broadcast to kind of top dress some in areas where there's a decent stand of grass, or smaller areas that are poor but that I don't want to tear things up to risk having things wash out worse. So usually when we seed waterways, I take the oats and the versagrass and mix them together like in a big plastic tub, and then pour them in, do like half a bag of oats and half a bag of grass seed or whatever, and kind of try to get it consistent mix that way. Since I have kind of a variety of stuff and I'm not going to have a big enough container to mix it very well, I think I'm just going to do it in the drill. So I'm just going to kind of pour in some oats, pour in some Versa, and then just kind of pour everything in, and then when I'm done, just kind of go and stir it up with my hands. So I'm going to try to set the camera up on the end here. I don't know how visible things will be, but we'll give it a shot. All up the best I can, and then may take like a hand grain scoop or feed scoop and redistribute some between the boxes if I have one box more full than the others. I went ahead and pulled the grain drill back in the shed. So I think right now I'm going to rearrange seed and kind of sort things out a little bit and see what I've got, and at least make sure that the shorter season numbers that probably I'll plant first are on the top. So I've got, I think, two varieties on this pallet, 2 varieties on this pallet, and 3 varieties on that pallet there. So I'll just kind of stack stuff wherever makes sense. I've got some space in here, but not enough space to put another pallet. So we'll just stack some of the ones that I have, a few bags probably in here, and then there's some space on the back side, or the left side actually of the hay rack, but the back from this perspective, that I can stack some stuff back there also.